talking to Mark, and Mark tells me that his interest in electronics goes way back, and one of his things in his resume is that
I was OMSI's electronic designer for 15 years. I left about a year ago.
Now, what is OMSI's?
OMSI is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. It's Portland's version of the Exploratorium. Not as big, but certainly very cool.
And what were some of the things during your reign in that position? What were some of the high marks of your career there?
I got to work on just about anything and everything.
Well, what would be an example of one of those things?
Well, my favorite thing is actually not at OMSI. I did make a prototype version. It was called the Illumitoon, and it was a musical instrument per se that was, well, the final version is a series of hanging metal tubes, and I used the equivalent of pinball flippers to hit them with photocells looking down. So when they see a change in light level, it will strike the tube. So this is a huge musical instrument. You walk underneath, and that's how you play it.
Wow.
If you run from the lower to the upper, blah, 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 and these plungers are hitting these aluminum tubes.
Wow. Since you're a man of electricity, are you an Edisonian or a Teslite?
You know, I can go both ways. I'm ambidextrous. I both have definite advantages or disadvantages. It's sort of a Chevys versus Fords, although many years later, DC power transmission, which was favored by Edison, is used, for example, from Bonneville Dam, the high voltage line that goes to California. That is high voltage DC. It's converted back to AC at the other end.
And how far does it go with DC? Was it like 100 miles, 200 miles, 300?
Oh no, from
15,000.
I don't know where the substation in California is.
But about how far would you say?
But hundreds of miles.
Okay, so back during Edison's time, that was considered completely impractical, and that's why they went with alternating current, because they couldn't do that. They couldn't send it.
There's a lot different technology now to convert the DC back to AC that wasn't available then.
I see.
Back then they would use something called the dynamotor. You have a big motor hooked to a generator, and the generator, actually be an alternator, put out AC.
Wow. Okay. Well,
what I'm best known as in the world, if you Google my name, is a musical instrument called a theremin.
And what do you have to do with the theremin?
If you do a web search for my name, it will pop up as one of the designers of vacuum tube theremins.
Is that the one the Beach Boys used in Good Vibrations?
That was technically not correct. They wanted the effect, and they used a modified Heathkit audio oscillator set up by a gentleman named Paul Tanner, and he had a string that went around the dial, and it went to a pointer, and he drew the keyboard so they could go, oh. But yes, you have that correct. One of my theremins was actually on the David Letterman show last year.
And what context on the David Letterman show did they...
The John Spencer Blues Explosion, who I've built several theremins for, had one of mine on there.
Wow, that's kind of an amazing thing. So now you're working with the theremin. Was it before Good Vibrations came out?
Well, yeah, the theremin goes back to the
your involvement with it.
Oh no, that was the Good Vibrations came out in the mid '60s.
And when did you do your initial work when the theremin?
In the mid-'90s, I saw the documentary, and I couldn't figure out why no one is doing this. So I looked online, and you have like several hundred people all claim that they're doing this. So I went ahead and designed and built a vacuum tube theremin. It's known as the Keppinger design.
And now, what is the advantage of the vacuum tube theremin over the non-vacuum tube theremin?
A friend of mine bought a Ferrari 308, and I was looking at the spec sheet on it, and it wasn't much different than the Toyota MR2 that he had. And he says, no, it's not what it does, it's how it does it. And the purists like vacuum tubes. They're more temperamental, there's more things to be involved, but it's kind of like the guy that likes the British sports car. He says it's so superior, even though he's working on it every weekend to keep it superior.
Well, isn't that why he gets it, so he can work on it all the time?
Absolutely.
Isn't that
like the early Harleys? People didn't get them to ride, they got them to work on them.